educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Never Work podcast, where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here's your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
Thank you very much for tuning in to That Will Never Work podcast. We're going to have fun today, and you're going to learn a whole lot today, especially for those of you who understand my background, and you'll understand what I mean by that in a moment. My guest today is a loving husband, a father who pushes himself to live in excellence so he can set an example for those around him. And at one point in his life, he weighed over 300 pounds before getting focused on his health and losing more than 100 pounds without fad diets or weight loss drugs. And hopefully we can find out maybe how he had done that, because some of us need to probably take a page out that book. But an action taker with his finger on the pulse who focuses on service to others above all else, leading him to produce more than 7 figures in revenues no matter what industry he has worked in. Not one to turn away from a challenge, he looks to get out of his comfort zone as much as possible, which a lot of us do not like to do. And he's worked from tech support in a software startup to vice president of a multi-million-dollar consulting company. He understands what it means to start at the bottom and work his way to the top. And so we're going to talk about one of those places that we look at in most organizations that we feel as though is the bottom in a lot of cases, right? So we're going to dive into that, but we're going to understand that's probably one of the most important parts of your organization. I thank you very much for listening today. I'll bring none other to you than Drewbie. Drewbie, thanks for coming on the show.
Man, Maurice, thank you so much for having me, my friend. I'm excited to be here. I know even before this whole call got started, man, we were having a lot of fun. So I appreciate you giving me an opportunity and a little time to share some of my wisdom with your audience today, brother.
Man, listen, man, I appreciate it, man. We're going to have, I know we're going to have some fun, especially talking about this one part of the organization that we don't give enough credit to. And I worked in that industry or that field or that space 7 years out of my 14 years in corporate America before I had gotten sick out of stress and everything else. But working in this department put that stress on me. I'm going to be honest with you. But, so for those of you who are listening, especially for those who work with me at Health Partners of Philadelphia, we all worked in customer service. But we were the lifeblood, or we felt like we were the lifeblood of that organization. So how important is it in any organization to understand what customer service is?
Oh, Maurice, we could talk about customer service all day. It's 2024 when we're recording this, so I'm hoping that maybe they're listening to this thing like 10 years from now in 2034, and they're like, dang, because customer service, in my opinion, is at an all-time low. Mm-hmm. And it breaks my heart because, man, it's awful. You go out and you want to like spend your money, you want to have a nice experience, and the service industry right now is not what it was when I was growing up. And, I'm Maurice, I don't know how old you are. You got a couple of grays, almost as many as I do. So, you remember when customer service was everything.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. No, sir. Yep. That was it. And what I've realized is that a lot of people live now in this immediate gratification, I want it now mindset. And that's on both sides of the coin. That is the people who are you and I wanting things right now because we're so used to Amazon and getting immediate that dopamine hit because we can pull up Google and order it to our house within 30 minutes or less.
Right.
And then from a service standpoint, as I genuinely think people care and they want to help, but they are limited in what they can do in their role, in their situation, in the resources that they are provided. And I can speak from 100% certainty and life experience that in any position I've ever been blessed to have, even if I didn't have the skill set, if I just focused on how can I help the people around me, my life always found a way to continuously get better. And to me, I think service is that missing piece that everyone has deep down inside of them, but has kind of gone by the wayside for immediate gratification.
So I think that customer service in addition to what you're stating, because you said people want to help, but they also want that service back with a smile, because that's how you sell, right? It starts with customer service. That's how you get the sale. Even though you can't close. And again, like I said, I had listened to some of your shows. So but I think that's one of the things that helps to close any deal. You might not know your product 100% or believe in it, whatever it might be, but if you could just say it with a smile, be genuine, and be honest with not just yourself, but the client, customer, other, whatever it might be. I think that's what helps to get to the next level, no matter where you are.
Well, I think what's so fun is that anyone thinks back to a buying experience where they dealt with a sales professional who was funny and goofy and made them laugh.
Right.
And honestly, a lot of times they didn't know half the daggum things about the product that you were trying to buy that you did.
Right.
Because you came in educated. You already knew what you wanted to buy.
Right.
And all they had to do was just be fun, friendly, and help you make you feel good about making that purchase.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have to know everything. All they had to know was that you had a need and they had the thing that you were looking for. And if they were good at what they do, serving you to get the thing that you want, it's crazy. You can see some of the silliest people have the most success in sales because they just focus on service.
Right.
That's it. They don't have to know everything. They don't have to have the sharp tongue or the fancy suit.
Right.
I mean, that can help in some situations, but the best closers I know, man, they are just fun, genuine people that you feel good about working with.
So why do you think most companies have kind of strayed away from that personal atmosphere as they're talking to their clients and or customers?
You're not going to like this answer, Maurice, but it starts at the top. That's because the business owners, the entrepreneurs, I think, are busy in the sense that they are trying to accomplish and move the needle forward at a level that employees don't necessarily understand. And also, your attitude, your mindset, your mentality trickles down.
Right.
So if you're short with somebody in the office because you wanted the answer yesterday and not today, well, that same energy is then going to translate when they go to speak to a customer. Because even if Mrs. Jones, who works in your service department, is an amazing, wonderful, genuinely kind human being, if she gets short, snappy responses long enough from the people who are in charge of her or who she's supposed to trust to lead her to victory in her role, that's the kind of person she's going to become. Because that's the expectation that's been set. And that's the type of energy that is being transmitted in there. And energy begets energy, Maurice.
Right,
you know that. If you got a smile, people will smile. But if you got a nasty look on your face, they're going to immediately be like, is there anybody else here I can work with? Like, yeah. So
my question to you then is that you have this idea of like, I'm going to crush the day. And but like as you stated, sometimes it comes from the top. But what if it's not coming from the top? But I want to have or embrace this idea of crushing the day. How do I apply that if my leadership is not applying that to not just me, but even those that are around me?
Oh, this is again gonna get a little bit. I'm gonna get a little woo-woo with you here, Maurice. But here's the thing, man. You have to lean in and understand that the only person you are ultimately responsible for is you. And so what we have to learn how to do in our lives is to create these boundaries. And my wife and I love talking about this because these are a lot of things in our personal relationship that were really important for this growth. But professionally, boundaries are really important also because you may be a very high energy, spirited individual who has a boss that is a little more short tempered and maybe a little more alpha, let's say. And you have to learn how to work with them and understand that their personality type is their personality type. And at the end of the day, unless you want to take your skill set somewhere else, which you have the right to go and take your skills anywhere you want. But as you said, a lot of people would rather stay comfortable. So you've got to learn to create that boundary to where you can be comfortable. hey, if I know this guy's getting a little bit heated, what kind of firewall am I putting in between us so that even if he's heated, it's not affecting me in my day to day? Because the one thing I know, Maurice, and this is really where Crush the Day comes from, is that, hey, man, it's easy. We wake up, the alarm goes off on our phone, we turn it off, and then we start going, oh, well, what's going on social media? Oh, okay, cool. Oh, well, that's not very cool. That's not cool either. And so all of a sudden, everybody else's influence has now brought you down, and you have to carry that into the day.
Right.
How many people do you know that you're like, hey, what's going on? And they're like, man, I saw this thing on the news. Like, what does that have to do? Like,
right.
And again, I understand we all have empathy, and a lot of us, again, this is why I say people care. Because if you care so much that someone else's thing that has absolutely nothing to do and which you have no control over is affecting your life, it means you do care. And you have the ability to serve and to think like a servant. And so I think for me, Crushing the Day is that reminder of, hey, you are the rock. You get to make the choice. Either you become the diamond or you become soft and you let other things crush you. But this is your choice. You control you, no one else.
But, sometimes, again, I could speak for myself being in that customer service environment. If my coworker is not happy-go-lucky, this coworker over here is not happy-go-lucky, my manager, we're worried about stats. We're trying to get to 100 calls a day, because we get stat-driven. Hey, you know what? We can't be on the call no longer than 3 minutes. If we're 4 minutes, then we're getting docked and all, So sometimes it's hard to be in that spot and think I'm going to crush it. I'm going to continue to do it with a smile and a laugh and enjoy it, because sometimes that takes away from the time. So if I'm just using that as an example of being in constraints, being in this box, you get what I mean? So how can I crush it if I have this box around me that whether it's stats driven or just the environment? How can I crush it if I have all these things piled on top of me?
So I love that you challenge it a little bit. This is so fun for me, because here's the way I look at it. And I'm going to steal a quote from a mentor of mine along the way, but it's, if you do more than you're paid for, eventually you'll be paid for more than you do. And I don't remember who said it exactly. But this is the way I look at that. In the role you're in, let's say you have certain metrics, KPIs, boxes that you have to check to complete your job. That's awesome. That actually sets you apart and ahead, because most people's jobs don't have KPIs or don't have boxes. It's just kind of like, hey, we expect you to know what to do, even though you don't know what you don't know. And it's like, how does that make any sense? How can you judge my performance when there's really nothing to judge it upon? So if you do have KPIs and you do have things that you're supposed to be hitting, and you are hitting all of those numbers except for a select few. Hey, man, I'm making the calls, I'm having the conversations, but like every single time I'm into a good conversation, it goes 5 minutes instead of 3 minutes.
Right.
Now we can start breaking down logically without any bias or emotion involved. And we can say, well, the process is we have to ask these 10 questions in order to check all the boxes. Consistently, we get the same answer to this question every single time. So if that question is adding an additional 1 minute of conversation and we know it's not affecting the outcome, is it really an important part of the process? But most people don't have that process. They don't have those base measurements to go from. That's why it's so hard for them to improve. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense, because now here's my, again, being in that space.
Yeah, come on.
I am working. I am checking all those boxes. I'm going above and beyond, and I'm hoping that I can get a little bit more money, but it never comes. You get what I mean? Like, so you never feel the reward coming back, so how does that work? If I know I'm crushing it, I'm getting, in order for me to keep my position, and I'm just using one of the jobs that I had, we had to keep a 95% on every call. So if I'm crushing at 96, 97, month in, month out, I'm even becoming an employee of the month and all these accolades. But Drew, they're not sharing. They're not sharing anything. No profits, no nothing. You know. So how do I stay motivated? Or did I just use what you said? Do the LeBron. Take my talents elsewhere, right? You know.
Well, so this is ultimately why I say only you can be responsible for you, Maurice, and for whoever's here listening. And what I always will tell people, this is kind of like, I typically work with a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners that have kind of taken that leap. But here's what I remember when I was at that point where I worked for someone else and I had my metrics and I had the things that I had to do and be responsible for. I will never forget this moment. I had been hitting the same monthly income amount. I had my base salary and then I got performance bonus, right? So it was like, okay, cool. You get a little extra commissions and that. And I was getting consistently in this $400 to $4,200 a month and I couldn't get past it. I'm like, what do I got to do? And so I went to the boss and I'm like, hey, boss, you know, I'm hitting all my metrics and I'm doing all the things that you're telling me to do. And I'm going above and beyond. I'm working my butt off. I'm staying late. What do I got to do to get to this next level? And you know what he said to me, Maurice? God love him. He said, you got to be patient, young man, because in 10 years, it'll be your name on the door and it'll be your responsibility and you'll have all the extra benefits and, you know, the money that goes along with those responsibilities. And I thought to myself, well, respectfully, I know you have put your life savings and everything that you have into building this business. We're related in a sense. So like, non-biased,
right?
I get it, and also biasly, I'm not gonna wait 10 years.
Right.
That's not something I'm interested in.
And I totally agree because sometimes situations like that, you're like, 10 years is gonna be 20. 20 is going to end up being 30. Next thing you're retired, and I'm right behind you. I'm about to retire too. And I have not gotten 1 cent, 1 penny. My 401k looks like trash. My investments, you know, so I totally hear that where you're coming from.
So like where I was going with that, and I appreciate you taking that for a second so I could get my cough out. I got a little frog in my throat there. But where I was going with that is I remember thinking to myself, okay, he's not the answer to my problem. And one of the wise mentors in my life always said, hey, you don't have to have the answer to every problem. You just got to know where to go looking for them. And good old Drewbie thought, well, the answer to my problem is not here. So let me go online and look online and see if I can find it there. And Maurice, it's amazing what you can learn on the internet. Would you imagine? There are podcasts just like the, you know, this one. There are shows and YouTube. And you know what they told me? Hey, that'll never work. Drewbie.
Right.
That'll never work. And I was like, well, I'm doing the work and I'm a sales guy and I'm really good at what I do. And I help a lot of people. How do I get in front of more people to help? How can I start learning some marketing and find more exclusive leads instead of having to talk to somebody that's talked to 6 other agents? How can I talk to someone that's only talking to me? Again, right? Just measuring these little metrics and things that I can make small tweaks on and see what happens. So I go online, I start learning marketing, and I basically doubled my production within 60 days. I started figuring out how to get my own leads and how to do these different processes. And I'll never forget this wonderful young lady named Nancy. She called me one day and she says, hey, Drew, you're using this software that I'm also a member of. We're in this same Facebook community group, and I see that you're getting some accolades and people are shouting you out for what you know. She said, how much for an hour of your time? Maurice, that moment changed my life. Because in that moment, I was sitting there with this mentality of I'm an employee. I work for someone else.
Yes.
I'm great at what I do. I check all the boxes. I'm going above and beyond. I'm doing all of these things. Let me do some quick math in my head. If my salary is X and I'm typically making such and such commissions every month, and so let's say I'm making $4,000 a month. And if I were to work on a weekend or overtime, again, salary, mental mindset, I would want time and a half, probably, maybe even double time, like if it was a holiday. So I'm doing this math in my head as quickly as possible because Nancy's on the other end of the line waiting for my response.
Right.
And I get this idea of, you know what? I'm gonna ask for $50. That's a lot of money. So it's like, all right, Nancy, yeah, for how about $50? That seems fair. And she was so confused. She's like, I was gonna say 75. I said, yeah, that's good. That's good. I'll take that. And so I got on the call, had a great conversation. It was literally just like this. We're laughing, we're having fun. She's asking me questions. I'm sharing what I know. And I get to the end of the call and she Venmos me $75. And I'll never forget telling my wife, how do I do this every day? Because if I could just do this, I could leave this job and we'd make way more money and it would be way better. And it was that moment where I started truly understanding that my time is the one asset that I cannot get back. Well, I say it this way: time, energy, and effort. The only things you cannot get back. We all can make more money, but time, energy, and effort are the true finite resources. We can't win them in a poker tournament. We don't get a box full of them on Christmas or our birthday. Right. And so to me, I had to start realizing if time is the one thing I have to invest and people pay me for my time, I now have to decide, do I want to work twice as much or do I want to make my time twice as valuable? And this is the formula that I always start giving people because I know we're getting close to time and I want to be respectful. But here's what I tell people. Whatever you made in the last year, your main job, maybe you've started a side hustle, you're doing some affiliate things, maybe you're sharing pictures of your feed on the internet, like whatever. I'm not judging. I'm just saying you're doing these things to make some income.
Right.
You added all of that income up and you divided it by the number 2,000. This is how you come up with your hourly rate. Because if you were a normal person and you're listening to this podcast, so I know you're not average or normal, you're going above and beyond. But if you were normal, you'd work 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, which is 2,000 hours. And so if you made $50,000 last year, your time is worth $25 an hour. If you made 100,000, it's worth $50 an hour. You see how it doesn't seem like that big of a discrepancy? Like, how do I go from 50 to 100? This is $25 an hour more.
Right.
But here's what's really scary, Maurice. If I knocked on your door right now with a big old black cape and a big scary like sight thing, and I said, hey, you have 24 hours left to live. Here's $25, $50, whatever that arbitrary number is. What kind of response are you likely to give me?
I'll probably just faint.
That is the first time anyone has ever given me that response. Thank you for being 100% honest. Sometimes it's more of like an expletive or like absolutely not, no way in would I trade one of the last 24 hours that I have for that dollar amount.
Right.
And that's the realization I want people to have here, because we don't know how much time we have. We aren't guaranteed anything in life.
Right.
Except death and taxes.
Right.
And so if we know that, hey, there's only so much time left, why are we not being more intentional with the way that we invest it? Why are we not being more intentional with what we ask of it from the world around us? Because I know, man, the more you ask of things, the more you get. It's crazy. But if you just ask, the universe will find a way to provide it for you.
I don't think that we understand our true value, which is what you're saying at the crux of this, because is our time really worth $50 overall? Because here's the reality. Whatever skill you're providing, no matter if you went to YouTube University or the university, the community college or whatever it is, right? That took up time for you to learn that skill. So, and now I'm providing something to you that is worth more than what you're actually providing me. So like you said, you know what, let me think about this for $50. And she said 75. Well, my thought would be, can I push it for 90? Maybe 100. like let's see, let's test the waters a little bit, right? Because sometimes we don't understand that maybe that person values what I'm about to provide them more than I do. It's because, and so because we might be doing it for so long, we've been, so for an example, let's make a flyer. Well, if you're already an artist and you've been drawing all your life, you feel like making a flyer for somebody, a character, is just something I do on the side. I doodle all the time. So I don't have any real value in something that I just do in my leisure time, not realizing that this person over here is probably willing to act like it's the next Picasso. You get what I mean? Where it's priceless. So I think those are the type of things that we don't give ourselves enough credit and or do enough research on understanding, like, hey, what can we really do to make the real salary, income, whatever it is that we can possibly make?
And I think that's the thing that a lot of us settle for, that comfort of, hey, here's a skill that I have that will get me by. But it's not the one that brings me passion. It's not the one that fills me with joy. And what I find is that typically the thing that really lights you up and brings you passion and fills you with joy will make you way, way more money than the thing that you do because you think it's the thing you should be doing. The difference is the belief in yourself and the willingness to do the work, even when everyone in your life says, that will never work, Maurice.
Right, most definitely.
That will never work. But the truth is, they don't want to do the work in order for it to work. And the one thing that I know, man, at the end of the day, whatever it is you want to achieve, whatever your version of success looks like, which is wildly different than what my version looks like. And if you asked our parents what they thought our version of a successful life would be, is astronomically different.
Right.
But once you dial in and realize it's up to you to pick what your version is and how you want to live, and now you've got the decision to say, am I willing to do the work to make it a reality? And even as far-fetched and as crazy as some ideas might seem to you right now, I promise you, if you write them down and you believe in yourself that they are possible, you will start wiring your mind together in ways to make it a reality. But that's the thing that most people are afraid to do because they don't want to get uncomfortable. And anyone says, hey, that's never going to work, they just want to believe it because they know how much work is actually going to be involved for it to be real.
So, Drew, man, I thank you for coming on the show. But, one last question. Drew, I don't believe in myself, and I'm not sure of myself. So where can I reach out to you to find out and get this type of reassurance, this coaching that I need for me to get to the next level? Because, Drew, I really don't believe. So where can I reach out and find you?
I reject that for you, Maurice. I know you believe, and I know the listeners believe too. However, if you were here, you enjoyed the show, you thought, man, this guy's all right, I kind of like what he had to say, maybe I learned something today. What I would really ask you to do is share this episode on social media. Tag Maurice, tag me at Call the Damn Leads. That's going to notify me that you watched this episode and you got value out of this conversation. Because I know if you enjoyed this conversation, there's a whole lot more that I can send you that's free, doesn't cost anything. Just, I love to give value from our website. But if you tag this episode first, I'll know what you like, so I'll know what to send you. So at Call the Damn Leads, then come and find me on Google, whatever your favorite social platform is. Follow us, subscribe to our show if you like listening to podcasts like this. But more than anything, let this be your permission slip to go be the person that you know you want to be. Because even if they said that'll never work, it might. And why not try?
I know, right? Man, you listened to an episode, didn't you? You heard the way the show ends out.
I, too, might do my homework, Maurice. I appreciate it.
So, but Drew, of course, you're not going to ask you the question then. Would you rather question? So, Drew, would you rather choose 3 doors or a fork in the road?
Fork in the road.
And why a fork?
Because if there's a fork, I only got one thing to worry about as my decision versus 2.
That was really simple, Drew. I expected more.
I like to keep it simple. Keep it simple sells, Maurice. You make it complicated, everybody gets confused.
I know that's
man,
right.
I only got one decision to make instead of 2.
Nothing philosophical, no signs, no stars, like nothing like that. No, but I appreciate that. In all honesty, I appreciate that because sometimes we make it more difficult, like you just stated, than it needs to be. It's right or left, right or wrong. Eventually it's going to become right. Because sometimes we think of it being the wrong direction, but it's really the right direction because now we're learning something along the way. That's it. There's no wrong direction in my opinion.
All paths lead to the road we're supposed to be on.
Right. Yeah, man. So, Drew, I appreciate you, bro.
Thank you, Maurice. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, man.
Sure, no problem. And thank y'all very much for listening to That Will Never Work podcast, and I will talk to y'all a little later.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at Chisholm Group LLC and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work, or will it?
I think Drew said it a little bit better than that, y'all. Thank you very much for listening to That Will Never Work podcast.